I'd like to open the February 6, 2020 meeting for the Columbia County Planning and Zoning Commission. If you'd stand with us, Commissioner Wilder will lead us in our invocation. Commissioner Henderson will lead us in the pledge.
Y'all bow with me. Dear Lord, we want to thank you for this day. We sure would like a break from all this rain. I know it's sure like a break. We want to thank you for all the blessings you bestow upon us here in this community, country. We ask that you look over all of our first responders, our law enforcement, military here and abroad. Guide us tonight as we make these decisions, the right thing, and will please you.
Pledge allegiance. Flag. United States of America. Republic. Stands. One nation. God. Indivisible. Liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Be seated. If I could remind you to please silence your cell phones. We do have all 5 commissioners here tonight for a full quorum. Gentlemen, we've got 2 orders of business tonight on minutes. The first is the approval of the minutes from January 16th meeting. If there are no changes to those minutes, I'd like a motion for approval.
Chairman, I move we accept the minutes.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor? Motion to approve carries 4-0. Mr. Vice Chair, I believe we have one item to add to the agenda for this evening.
Yes, we need to add item H2E1, change it from conceptual plan to individual plat, and the item will be the individual plat for Hereford Farm Development LLC.
Okay, gentlemen, if there are no other additional items, I need approval for the amended agenda.
Chairman, I make a motion to approve.
Do I hear a second? All in favor? Motion to approve the amended agenda passes 5-0. Before we begin, I'd like to take a moment to clarify that the Planning Commission is a recommending body to the Columbia County Board of Commissioners. Decisions made on rezoning and variance requests tonight will be forwarded to the Commissioners for final action on February 18th, 2020 at 6 p.m. in these chambers. If you wish to address the Board of Commissioners at their meeting, please see Ms. Kara Harden, and she'll give you a request to speak form. We're less formal in our hearing tonight. If you have an issue that you'd like to speak to us about, either in our public hearing for rezonings and variances or at the public comments section at the end of the meeting, we'll give you an opportunity to come up to the dais and give us 3 to 5 minutes of whatever you'd like us to consider. With that being said, we do have one item of unfinished business. The approval of the minutes from January 2nd, 2020, which was tabled from the January 16th meeting. Gentlemen, if you've got had a chance to look at those, we'll need a motion to approve.
This is the one that we tabled on the last.
Yeah. Right. Right. So, I was here.
Oh, the 16th was the 3.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we had 4. So with that being said, gentlemen,
I'm the
you're the odd man out.
Okay.
So we'll need a motion to approve the minutes as are submitted from January 2.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the January 2nd Planning Commission.
Do I hear a second? All in favor? Motion to approve as submitted passes 4-0. All right, and with that, I will turn the meeting over to the Vice Chair for nominations of officers.
All right, nominations are now in order for the office of Chairman, Chairperson of the Columbia County Planning Commission. I'll accept nominations for the chair.
Vice Chair, I would like to nominate Mr. Jim.
All right, the nomination does not need to be seconded. Are there any other nominations? All right, Commissioner Cox has been nominated for Chairperson of the Columbia County Planning Commission. If there's no other nominations, then the Columbia County Planning Commission, then I move the nominations be closed.
Second.
All right, all in favor? Give it back to you.
Thanks, sir. At this point, I would like to open the nominations for Vice Chair for the Columbia County Planning Commission. Do I have a nomination?
Mr. Chairman, I nominate Rich Henderson for the vice chair.
Do I hear a second? None is required. Are there any more nominations? With that, I'll close the nominations and move to a vote. All in favor of Commissioner Henderson serving as vice chair? Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Congratulations. Thank you all for the confidence. With that, let's move on into our first item of the evening. We've got a rezoning on our unfinished business agenda. File RZ 200103. Mr. Butler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's a request for a rezoning to S1 special for a proposed self-storage facility over on Rose Court, Rose Lane, and off Rose Street. Again, we saw this last meeting. However, the request was to table it due to some issues with the site plan. We'll kind of get into that in a moment. This location of the property on the south side of Rose Street. And it's currently zoned C2. The property here has a conditional use for self-storage. So really what we're doing is adding the other two parcels here to enable for self-storage to be on the entire parcel as it stands. Everything around it is zoned C2, as you can see. Again, this is this area of Martinez. Again, sure, this is the aerial view of the site. And undeveloped, there is an existing house here. And the existing site showing the undeveloped portion. And the plat for the Rose Street property. And 3866 Rose. So last time that we saw this, the concept had a wall that went basically around the entirety of the site. One of the issues that Water Utility brought up was that the sewer line that's here, they cannot have a permanent structure on top of their line. So the request there was to basically change the entire site to be able to comply with that requirement. So what has happened now is that, and actually let's go into what we're looking at here. So you do have, can you go back to the site plan itself? So you have an office here. There's a clock tower that's shown on the edge there. Then you have this rings, the self-storage rings the outside of the property, and you have on the internal side of this, you have self-storage as well. With the change in the site plan, they did net about 74,000 square feet worth of additional storage. Currently, that is standing at 223,950 square feet. That includes both standard and climate controlled. With the change in the site plan, you do have buildings C and D are now tiered, as in they step down as the grade goes across the site. So this has enabled them to eliminate the need for the retaining wall on the side of the property. So the change there, what has happened is you now have just a wall on that side. You have a fence here and here. So in terms of the actual buildings themselves, what has been proposed is exactly what was there before, or what we saw last time. I mean, again, this shows the proposed buildings. You do have a mixture of stone. Again, you have does not look like a storage product from the outside of the site. That's kind of the applicant's intent, is to have this be a very nice product for the area. In terms of internally, you do have your very typical storage product on the inside of this. They do have an office proposed that does have an apartment with it. One thing with storage in Columbia County, you can have an apartment for a live-in manager on site, so that's not really a concern in this instance. Again, it does show the privacy wall that would be along Rose Street, and also the walls for the buildings would form most of the other side of it. The fence itself would be very similar to this wrought iron fence here. And so moving on to the tower. The tower is proposed to be 125 feet high. We'll see kind of a view shed of the area here in a moment. Staff views this as a sign. Our sign code is pretty broad with how you can define signage. So we do have a condition that speaks to this, and we're essentially saying the condition will lower this clock tower down to 60 feet from the ground. That's in line with a billboard, kind of where all that comes from. So in terms of the visibility of it, this shows at 125, the visibility of the tower is pretty extensive. Again, Bobby Jones Expressway is, you can be seen the entire length of it. You do have some portions of Washington Road where it can't be seen. It's kind of blocked out with some of the buildings. It can also be seen, within some of the residential sections over here and over into Richmond County. So it's a 60-foot height, and that is reduced. You still have a lot of coverage on Bobby Jones Parkway, but again, you have reduced your visibility into the residential sections that we saw before. In terms of the use itself, this is within the Martinez Activity Center. This type of use, generally speaking, what we'd like to kind of see on the edge of the Activity Center. However, with it already being permitted there with the previous conditional use, an expansion of this is not really an issue in our opinion. Staff is recommending approval of this with several conditions. The two of them being that the building materials and elevation will substantially comply with the provided photos. Has to come out before you guys for approval. And also, same thing for the privacy walls and fences. And then lastly, we do have a condition, meaning the clock tower is limited to 60 feet in height. And again, building materials will substantially comply with the provided photos and also be reviewed by the planning commission. That includes staff recommendation.
Gentlemen, any questions of staff? Okay, this is a public hearing. Is the applicant here this evening? Yes, sir. Would you like to come forward and give us any additional information? Please give us your names and home address.
I'm David Miles. I live at 4149 Hammonds Ferry. Been there for the last 20-something years.
Anything you want to tell us about the project? Anything you want to add?
I'll be glad to
We've
tell you how
got?
it came about. I was dealing with another principality where I was going in a residential area, and it was residential on half of it and the backside of commercial on the other half. But in the process of dealing with the principality, they implied that they wanted me to have a residential equestrian look. And I told them, I said, well, I can do that. But I said, the problem is if it looks like apartments, people will think it's apartments. And sure enough, during the construction stage, every time any one of my employees would get near the road, they would stop and ask, when are these going to be ready to rent? When are these going to be ready to rent? And we had to explain to them, ma'am, it's not an apartment, it's a storage facility. Well, when would they be ready to rent? They're still thinking it's going to be something they rent from outside. They didn't understand the concept until we got the gates up and people understood what it was for. But in the process of talking to the principality, I made comment to the fact that nobody's going to know what this is. I said, can I build something that would make it to where it will be unique to the city? And they said, well, what are you talking about? What are you thinking about? And I said, well, clock tower would be good. And the next comment was how tall could I make it? And they looked up in their code book, and it made reference to steeples and things of that nature, and said the height limit was 100 feet. And I said, okay, I'll build it 100 feet. Now, I don't know if they thought I would really do that or not, but I've always been known for being a little bit creative, and henceforth, that's what you see right there. Now, in the process of building that, as a business person, and the way that they made me do the outside, you're looking at about $1 million extra cost. And you have to question whether or not you can get that back or not. But I had to build it that way in order to do it. But after doing one that way, and I'll admit this is the first one that I've ever went to this extent to be creative. That's one of my things that I love to do is be creative. And in the process of doing it, I found out the area where I built this, and I'm not wanting this to leave the room, but it's not near the upscale community that Martinez and Columbia County is. So I'm 100% positive that my customer base will come to me before they would go to anybody else in an area like Columbia County. But in the process of looking at all the limitations that we're talking about with the clock tower, to spend half that money on the exterior and then not be able to make the full statement with the clock tower. My concept of a tower is something with extreme height.
Unfortunately, we've got rules that limit how tall buildings, depending on
Okay?
what they are,
I've
can
got,
be.
I've got business decisions to make in lieu of that. And respectively, if we can't go that way, I'll have to go back and look at the numbers and see if I'm willing to invest that kind of money in that area. I don't know how many of you is familiar with that area, but I bought up several pieces of land over there. It's extremely poor land as far as elevations. And I'm the sort of person,
You don't feel confident that without a 125-foot tall tower,
it'll be
100-foot tall,
120 feet, not 125.
business itself won't succeed? Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, for me to spend the money on the outside,
Talking about the exterior building?
the exterior of the buildings and everything to create that look. And the look itself, just with the exterior, that in itself draws attention. But if I build that clock tower and make reference to Martinez, and it's already stated in the remarks that I was going to put 3 clocks on that tower.
Right.
But the thing is, your name's on it, so it's a sign.
Pardon?
You can say clock tower all you want, it's a sign. It's got the name of your business on there, and our
I don't
code is-
have to put the name of the business.
Okay.
I've already said that.
Okay, that's not in our presentation.
Well,
But we still have a height limit. That's the
well,
issue.
let's take the signage of it altogether. You would still want Martinez on it, wouldn't you?
I think the question really is, do you want to go with what you've got here and see how we vote? And if it doesn't go your way, you can't come back for 6 months and repropose it. Or you can withdraw it tonight and get with staff and work your numbers and see if you can make it work.
Let's withdraw.
And it's your decision on what you think you need to
Let's
do.
withdraw it.
Okay?
If I feel like there's opposition against a clock tower,
At 125 feet, I think.
no, it's
it does-
120 feet.
120 feet. Say it's 110 feet, doesn't matter.
Well, let me explain.
Now, let me explain.
Okay.
We're a recommending body. I can tell you right now, the commissioners are not going to approve a 120-foot structure in Martinez,
Okay.
regardless of whether we put it forward or not.
Okay.
So I'm trying to help you out, so if you need to work your numbers, you can come back and either make a counterproposal or move on to the next thing. And as far as you're talking about that being a fairly worthless piece of property, I believe that's part of a tax opportunity district.
No, sir.
It's not?
I looked into it years ago.
Okay.
And my business doesn't qualify for it because I don't have enough
You
employees.
don't have enough employees, but say you did, you get a $5,000 tax credit per employee for 5 years. So there's a little more value to that than you've spoken here tonight.
Sir, I'll be spending in the neighborhood of $5 to $6 million.
Understand? But I'm saying if you had another client that brought employees there, it could be something too. So there is value to that property. I understand. I don't own it.
Mr. Miles, I want to ask you, you'd mentioned that the quality of the build. Did you bring this look to present to the commission or to staff, or did they require you to build it this way?
Is this what you built in Conyers?
When we went to the staff meeting, I showed them everything that you're looking at there as far as the appearance. The bottom side of that wall right there is probably 6 feet where you're looking at right there. As you go on out to the end of this property, it's 14 foot high.
I understand, but you're talking about the cost, and it's a very nice, I mean, the pictures I'm looking at here, it looks very nice comparatively speaking to other things that we've approved in the county. And so my question is staff requiring you to build it this way, or did you bring this to staff?
I was willing to go the whole 9 yards.
I understand, sir, but the question is, did staff tell you you had to do this?
Did you propose this design to staff?
Because you're saying that you have to build the tower because of the cost of the build, but the only person that's.
This is a new image that I was
understand, sir.
forced to build.
But did staff require you to build this in?
I can go back to a standard storage facility at the next meeting.
Okay.
I'm not prepared to present those numbers right now, but I'll be glad to bring that at the next meeting.
So the only reason I asked the question is that your presentation to Commissioner Wilder was that you have to have the height of the clock
I would like to do that to know that it
offset
would be
the
successful.
cost cost of the look of the build, but staff is not requiring the look of the build. You brought this to staff,
The clock tower or the rest of it?
the rest of it,
Stone and
the stone and the, and.
I brought all of it at the same time in hopes to get it all approved.
Okay.
So how does the cost change between, say, if you built it at 60 feet and you built it at 120 feet? I know it probably won't be half, but is it $400,000, $450,000 cheaper?
The cost of the tower wouldn't be the issue. What would be the issue is whether or not it would be successful enough.
But, so give me the number. Let's say it's $400,000. I've been in the advertising business here in Augusta for 35 years, and I can tell you, $400,000 to $450,000 in advertising is going to draw you a heck of a lot more customers than an extra 60 feet on that tower.
Well, if you
And it
know more
would be-
about it than
and
I
it
do,
would be
then
successful.
I congratulate you. We'll withdraw and I'll make statements, and unfortunately, I got other land to build on.
Sure, understand.
Thank you.
So withdrawal without prejudice would allow the gentleman to come back at any point in the future, correct?
That's correct.
So that would be your motion to withdraw without prejudice.
Yes, sir.
Got it?
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that'd like to speak either for or against this particular rezoning? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and accept a motion to approve, deny, the table, or to allow the gentleman to withdraw without prejudice.
Mr. Chair, I move to allow the gentleman to withdraw without prejudice.
Do you hear a second?
Second.
All in favor? Motion is approved 5-0. Under new business, Mr. Butler, file RZ 200206.
Thank you. This is a request for a minor S1 revision. It's very minor. To revise the operator of the facility, hours of operation, and students served at 230 Southwell Bel Air Road. Request is by Savannah River Academy. There's a property on the west side of Southwell Bel Air Road. Again, currently it's zoned S1 special for the existing Evans Christian Academy. You have a mixture of R1 and R2 around it. Shows the aerial view of the site and also the existing site itself. In terms of what they're looking for, actually, we'll look at the plat too. I believe. There's the plat. So in terms of what they're requesting, Evans Christian Academy had a very specific narrative that actually named them as the user. So it has to be changed with the revision. We've done that in the past where we've changed the name of the operator. In terms of hours of operation, Evans Christian Academy operates from 7:30 a.m. to approximately 4 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and 7:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. on Friday. Savannah River Academy would be from 8:30 to 12:30 Monday through Thursday. Then they have in the afternoons also have some activities as well until 3:30. They would like to in the future expand that to 6 p.m. with after-school activities. So again, very similar amount of use there. The only thing that's really different is the Savannah River Academy currently has 60 students. Narrative for Evans Christian Academy was for 51. Savannah River Academy would like to increase that to approximately 200 students in the future. That's really the only issue that we had with it, and that we looked into that from both fire and traffic, and that was not a concern from either party in regards to that. Due to all of that, again, very minor request, staff recommends approval of the request. In terms of future land use, it is within a neighborhood's character area. A school is allowed within these areas. It does meet the intent of the future land use map. Again, staff recommends approval of the request.
Gentlemen, any questions of staff? This is a public hearing. Is there anyone here that'd like to speak either for or against? Reynolds, I see you in the back. Okay. Nobody wants to. We'll close the public hearing and accept a motion to approve, deny, or to table.
Chairman, I make a motion to approve the minor S1 revision. Banner.
RZ
River Academy.
2006. Do we hear a second? Any discussion? All in favor? Motion to approve carries 5-0. Let's see, Mr. Butler, we're still with you. You have an item to present as information only, file MW 200201.
Sure it is, minor waiver at 429 Arden Way, approved by staff back on 29th of January 2020. So this shows the location of the property is within Crawford Creek, and the overall zoning of that is a planned unit development. And the area view of the site, then we have a site plan showing a pool. The issue with this is that the rear setback is 20 feet from the property line, a little different than most. You can see on the plan, it does show a 10-foot. That's what Pete Alon's pool folks thought it was. We reduced it down to 18 within a 10% threshold. You can see it there, reduction down to that. Again, approved back in January.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Butler, we'll stay with you, and we have a massage operator's license for David Whiters, 2 DBA David's Helping Hands.
Yeah, this is one we saw back in November. Mr. Waters did not renew by the deadlines. We're going to see it again. Again, staff recommends approval of the massage operator's license at 101 Maple Drive for massage on premise and mobile massage services.
All right, gentlemen, any questions? Need a motion to approve, deny, or to table?
Chairman, I make a motion to approve the massage operator's license for Whiters as David's Helping Hand.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Discussion? Favor? Opposed? Motion is approved 3-2. All right, Ms. Bolte, preliminary plat for Kalari 5B.
Yes, sir. This is the preliminary plat for the next phase of Kalari located off Baker Place Road. This is at the rear of the development as they're working their way back from Baker Place. It is part of the larger Kalari PUD. This section includes 61 lots, includes mostly detached homes with a section of townhouses here on the cul-de-sac. The minimum lot size is 5,850 square feet, which meets the PUD zoning. Front setbacks are 20 feet from the right-of-way, side setbacks of 5 feet, and rear setbacks of 10 feet for the single-family lots. The townhouse lots, when they're built, will of course have a 0-foot side setback for the attached units. There are 2.47 acres of open space in this section, and sidewalks are provided on both sides of the road. Staff is recommending approval.
Gentlemen, any questions, staff? A motion to approve, deny, or to table?
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to approve the preliminary plat for Kalari 5B.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Motion to approve carries 5-0. Bolte, professional home occupation for Elduit's Farm? Elduit's?
We did have the added item, the individual plat.
Oh, I'm sorry. We do. I didn't put it on the back part. So we've got an individual plat for Hereford Farm Development.
Yes, sir.
That's you?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
This is a plat off Hereford Farm Road. It's 12.3 acres, currently zoned R1, located at the intersection of Hereford Farm Road and Canterbury Drive. The applicants are requesting subdivision into 5 lots. That is above the 4 that can be approved by staff, so it does require planning commission review. The lots all meet the requirements for lots in R1. They have had to work quite closely with the health department and do fairly extensive soil surveying for this particular plat. All of these lots are going to require engineered septic systems. The soils are very poor for traditional or conventional septic systems. 2 of the lots, the systems are already designed for, and the other 2 will have to be done prior to building on them. This is 4 buildable lots. This 5th lot is a right-of-way lot to be dedicated to the county with the widening of Hereford Farm Road, and staff is recommending approval.
Gentlemen, any questions of staff? Motion to approve, deny, or to table?
I make a motion to approve the preliminary plat, individual plat
Individual plat.
for Hereford Farm LLC.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Approved carries 5-0. All right, Ms. Bolte, now the provisional home occupation.
Yes, sir. This is a request for a provisional home occupation for Elduit's Farm, located at 5400 Meadowlark Lane. This is at the kind of rear of Meadowlark Lane. You can see Uchi Creek back here forming kind of the boundary between these larger lots and Ivy Falls to the west. This property is currently zoned R1, which is single-family residential. This is the aerial of the site, house at the front. As a home occupation, the applicant is required to live on this property, and he does. He has about 8.5 acres here, so he does meet the 2-acre minimum. He has several active business licenses on the site. This particular request we're going to talk about tonight is in regards to adding egg sales and rabbit sales to his existing Eldowitz Farm business license. He's currently licensed for growing and selling fruits and vegetables on the property. R1 zoning does allow small-scale agriculture on a property. However, the limitation on that does refer to prohibiting poultry houses, dairies, ranges, or feedlots for the commercial sale of meat or eggs. In a strict definition, the applicant is selling eggs and he is selling rabbits for meat purposes. So strictly defined, it could be denied off of that restriction. In this case, we looked at a couple different ways to regulate this. Poultry houses in the kind of traditional or commercial sense are quite a bit larger than the applicant's proposal. You're usually talking thousands to tens of thousands of chickens. The applicant is proposing about 80 chickens, along with some ducks and some other guineas in the bird cage area of the property, the small square in the center there. It's quite a bit smaller than a real poultry house would be. The applicants have indicated that quite often they deliver the eggs or sell at farmers markets or other market locations. They do occasionally have customers come to the house, but it's usually a couple of weeks, so it shouldn't be a concern from a traffic standpoint, the vehicle trips on the home occupation requirements. The other side of this is the rabbit sales. We do have the rabbit area back there, separate, little square marked on the application on the site plan. Again, a very strict definition of feedlots. Yes, he is raising these animals for sale. In a very strict definition, you could consider that a feedlot. Again, we think this is a question of scale. Rather than attempting to set a density or an acreage limit, we chose to look at this as the percentage of the property being used. That is how we regulate customary home occupations. We use 20% of the house as the line for what a home business can occupy. So for the small-scale agriculture on an R1 property, we applied that same proportion, said 20% of the property could be used for this small-scale agricultural business and meet the intent of the home occupation requirements. Using that metric, the applicant's proposal does meet this. He's well below 20% of the property. With these two areas, he's at right around 2,000 square feet between the two of them. The entire fenced area is about 2 acres, so even if you include all of that, he's still under 20%. That fenced area has some donkeys and some other animals in it that are not related to the business request. Primary concern with allowing this type of use would be nuisances to neighbors. Having the site plan with the provisional can gives us some assurance with how it's going to operate and how we can mitigate that. You can see the houses on the adjacent lots are quite a bit further forward than the animal enclosure. And the applicant has centered the operations in the middle of his property, so he does have some natural buffer from both neighbors. R1, like I said, also does allow agricultural uses on the other properties. The immediately adjacent neighbors don't appear to be taking advantage of this, but other properties up and down Meadowlark do. From the aerial appear to have barns, fences, things like that, that would have agricultural type uses on the site. With that in mind, staff is recommending approval of this request.
Gentlemen, any questions of staff? This is not a public hearing, but I have a feeling we're going to need the applicant to come forward if they're here tonight. Yes, sir. Would you like to come forward and give us your name, home address, and a little additional information on this? I know the commissioners have had some questions in our little gathering before the meeting.
Certainly. My name is Robert Stoidle. Of course, we live at 5400 Meadowlark Lane.
Would you spell your last name?
Oh, yes, Steudle.
Okay, thank you.
What I'd like to say, I mean, this farm that we have, we started it for our family. We started the farm 6 years ago for the purpose of raising food for our family. And as a good learning experience for my 4 children. And that is the main, I will say, that is the main purpose of the farm, is for our family. But what we've done is, we've tried to estimate, about what our needs are at the slowest time of year, because of course, like chickens, they do have stronger and weaker periods of laying during molting and various seasonal fluctuations. Eggs are a large source of protein for our family, and our intent is to just sell the excess beyond what our needs are, and to just help pay for what we're doing there. We have no interest in any large-scale operations as far as production beyond what is presented here. This is basically the limit, is what we've requested is the limit of how big we want to grow on that property, just for that purpose. And, it's a great learning opportunity for our children, and even the business side, of course, they are learning a lot about that too. I know the biggest issue here, as our staff has noted, is that the impact on the neighborhood. Of course, we're not alone in having animals on the property. In fact, I will note, as it said, our one neighbor actually does have chickens, just for their personal use, but even our one neighbor does. But as far as the impact on the neighborhood, I actually have talked to my neighbors, and I do have a signed statement here. I was able to talk to everyone on Meadowlark Lane in our neighborhood, except for one house that I simply wasn't able to connect with any residents on, and as well as a couple of the immediate residents just outside of our neighborhood that would be the closest connected to any impact. And we have a 100% support of everyone that we've talked to. And just as a show of support, as I said, they have signed a statement that they do agree with us in selling this. So the concern about whether or not the neighborhood would be impacted negatively, their perspective is that it would be helpful or beneficial, or at least not a problem to them. And I'd be happy to address any questions that any of you have.
Sir, how many chickens do you have?
At this time, we have about 70. And I know
You're getting a lot of eggs then.
not as many as projected, and that may be because I am an amateur farmer myself. I do not have a lot of experience, and
Pick up in the springtime and the summer.
oh, it does.
Lot.
It does. And at that point, then we do produce a lot more than we can eat. But as Danielle noted, we do, last year was when we really started having basically more than we could eat. And during those peak periods, we go to the farmers markets. And that is where we sell most of the extra eggs. We just would like the opportunity for a little bit to ease.
Average in the spring and summer, you'll get 70, 80 eggs a day.
That was not our experience this past year.
Must have some bad chickens.
It could be our selection of breeds. It could be something I'm doing. It's a learning process. We've really only, as I said, I started the farm 6 years ago, but we've only had chickens about 3 years or so, 4 years. And I admit it's a learning process, and there may be things that I need to improve on to improve the productivity. And quite frankly, if I get to that point where it actually is producing that much, I will probably cut down on my own, on the number of chickens that we keep. But in the meantime, for the efficiency level that we're at, it's getting us the production that we're looking for. Like right now, we're basically getting barely more than we can eat ourselves. And that's what it's doing. Like I said, I know I'm still learning in how to do it efficiently, but it's just what seems to be working for us at this point.
So do the chickens roam? You've got this drawing here, and it says main livestock fence. Do they roam within this entire area?
No, they are contained. We have a couple, I've used kennel fencing, like the 6 by 10 foot dog kennel fencing, and we've set up free range areas where they are contained. And they have open air, a combination of protected for rain or weather protected like metal roofing and open air fencing.
So what you're describing to me is in this small square that says bird cages right here?
That is where they are contained. So they do not have the opportunity to roam around. Let me qualify that. The guinea fowl, we do allow to roam in that main livestock area because their main purpose is actually pest control. And we only have a few of them. And I don't intend to get a whole lot of those. But their main purpose is actually to contain the pests in the area for the health and well-being of people and the animals there. And they do a really good job of it.
How do you keep the guineas contained?
Well, we start, when we first get them, we put them into one of the enclosed areas, and that instills in them a homing instinct. And then after they've grown up fully in that area, seems to instill in them that that is their home area. And the ones that we've let out, they've never gone more than, well, actually, I've never seen them outside the fence, except right at the gate, which is close to our house. They'll sometimes come out if we have something right there that attracts them, but they immediately go right back in.
I prevent them from flying. I mean, my father-in-law raises guineas. Fortunately, I've learned a lot about guineas.
Yes, and I have heard that they do have a tendency to roam, but that has not been our experience in the time that we've had them. And I think, actually, now I think back maybe about a year or two ago, they did start roaming a little bit further, and what we did was we actually put them back in the enclosed kennel for a few weeks, or a couple weeks, and it just reinstilled in them that was their home area. When we let them back out again, other than those couple times they've come right up, just come over the gate and then gone right back in, they don't go out again. But if we saw any indication that they were going beyond the main livestock area, I would put them right back in there for a couple weeks. And the space is pretty big. I mean, it's a good 100 square feet for just a couple of them. I'd put them right back there, and I would expect the same result again to reinstill in them that that's where they belong.
What is, so you have several other business licenses under the occupation. You have Alduet's Farm, says for growing and sales of fruits and vegetables. You have a license for growing, so you're obviously not just intending to grow food for your family. You have a business to grow and sell outside of your family. So, but what is Alduet's Treasure of the World?
That is a specialty gift store that we actually had previously downtown on Broad Street, and we
Market on Broad?
no, it was a regular retail store.
Oh.
That we had our own storefront, our own store there. Due to life changes, when my wife was pregnant with our fourth child, we decided to close the brick and mortar operations so that she could be home with the family, as well as dealing with a few health issues I was dealing with from the military. We decided to bring it home and take it online. It honestly is not a very active business at the moment. We have maintained the business license because we do hope to get back to it, and we've simply kept it. Occasionally we'll get a phone or email order for a specialty item that we still have contacts for, but really that's all we're doing with that right now. I mean, it is we still have it as a business, but as I would like to say, it's kind of in a hibernation phase at the moment, but it is a legitimate business that we have there.
Questions?
The rabbits, how many rabbits you planning on raising? How many do you think you can raise? And we're not gonna be killing them and skinning them and selling them.
No, I do, the only ones I process are for our own family's use. I leave that specifically to the customer as far as how they want to process it out. In fact, I've talked to some people that they prefer to do their own work, and I'm quite happy to do that. I honestly, I do not like doing that, but you know, it's something it's part of life, and I'm content to do it for my own family, but that's the limit of what I want to do as far as processing.
How you gonna maintain the population sell through? Because rabbits, you know.
Oh, yes. Well, if you like the details on that, I mean, basically, if you want to control the population, all you have to do is pull the mail out. I mean, not to overstate the simplification, but really, if at any point, populations start to exceed our intentions, that's all I have to do is pull the mail and put them in a separate place. And then they're going to stop breeding until we get through what we have.
I've got some experience. A daughter in 4-H.
Like a lot of separation.
Oh, yeah. And they do like to play together. My daughter showed us. All right, gentlemen, any other questions? All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
This is not a public hearing, but we took the liberty, as you saw. Gentlemen, at this point, we'll need a motion to approve, deny, or to table.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the provisional home occupation farm at 400 Meadowlark Lane.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes 4-1. Okay, we'll move into our public hearing section tonight. Mr. Butler, file RZ 200201.
Thank you. This is a request for rezoning to C2 for property that's currently zoned R1 and M1 on North Side Gateway Boulevard, opposite the intersection of Partnership Drive. Here's the location of the property again, north side of Gateway Boulevard. Have all the other gateway development around it. The S1 here is for the hospital. Then again, the C2 adjacent to it across the street is zone R1, but that is primarily for Columbia County use. And shows aerial view of the site, again, not developed. Site itself, also the plat of the property, and the concept. So the request here, again, the concept that's shown before you tonight is not being considered as any sort of concept in that respect. It's not being held to, for them to actually develop the property in this manner in the future. As it's shown as what could be done, likely is very similar to what would be done on the property, just looking at the environmental issues that you see here across the site. Again, what is shown is you have a medical area here, office area here, and hotel at the back of the property. All those are C2 uses. In terms of, really that's a C2 request is really no concern in this area. The only thing that we would like to see with this, we do have some conditions regarding pedestrian connectivity. That is primarily because of what will be next to it. The hospital has provided extensive pedestrian connectivity to Gateway Boulevard and also internally. So we have a couple of conditions regarding that. The other thing too is that, again, the hospital has very extensive architectural requirements. Other developments within Gateway, again, you have the Walmart, and then across the street you have those developments as well. You either have a mixture of covenants that kind of govern the architectural style, or they have their own guidelines to go with those developments. Staff has recommended a condition that anything within this development meet CPOD, Quarter Protection Overlay District requirements. In terms of the future land use map, again, this is the site right here. It is within the activity center. This is a perfectly fine use, our Gateway Activity Center, perfectly fine use for this. Again, that this is primarily to be commercial development in this area. C2 fits it about perfectly. Again, staff recommends approval of conditions. Conditions, again, are requiring a ADA compliant sidewalk network within the development itself and to Gateway Boulevard, providing sidewalks along the front of Gateway Boulevard, and again, the CPOD requirements for building materials and architectural design. That includes staff recommendation.
This is a public hearing.
Also, sorry, I forgot about traffic. They also had a condition as well. I'm not going to get into their condition, to be honest with you. Includes a deceleration lane, other things with the access to the site. Again, not a huge concern, but again, there is a condition from traffic as well.
Public hearing. Is the applicant here this evening? Give us your name, home address, and any additional information you'd like us to have.
David Squires, 3505 Greenway Drive, Evans, Georgia, 30809. I'm a medical oncologist at Augusta Oncology Associates, and we wanted to put a new office out there, and we have a number of other physicians who want to be over there too. So as a group with multiple specialties, we have chosen to develop this area, which is adjacent to the hospital, which will be very convenient for all of our patients, assuming the hospital goes there if the court system ever figures that out. But I don't know if you've ever seen Augusta Oncology on Wheeler Road. It's a nice office. We would put on the right side in that first building that we will build, Building A, it would be about 80,000 square feet, 3 floors with a 4th floor that's just a restaurant, rooftop restaurant with activity, event center on the top. So all the employees and patients can use that area. It can be used in the evening for dining and that sort of thing, because many of the physicians and other professional groups like having an outdoor rooftop facility. And so it will get used during the day heavily and then during the evening. We anticipate that we would start building sometime after we get wetlands mitigation approval and we design the architecturally. And once we fill up that building, depending on who else wants to be over there, we have one across the street that's about 60,000 square feet, also at least 3 stories with sufficient parking. And then we will have a place for either an office building or a hotel. Probably that hotel would be the most beneficial use for the patients who would be coming there as well as to the hospital. And we would make sure that we exceed any kind of architectural designs because we all want to have a nice building there.
Rooftop area be available for public use or your all's use only?
No, it would be available for public use because we would have a public restaurant there, so people could go in, go up to the top, take pictures, whatever, but yeah.
Questions?
I don't think you could find a better use for the property.
But that's what Doug Duncan said.
Awesome. All right, thank you, sir. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone here that'd like to speak either for or against this particular rezoning? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and accept a motion to approve, deny, or to table.
Mr. Chairman, make a motion to approve with conditions, file RZ 00201 on the right sheet. Property 46.
Second. Second. Any discussion? All in favor? Approved carries 5-0. Mr. Butler, we'll stay with you. File RZ 200202.
Request for a rezoning from PDD, Plan Development District, to P1 Professional for property at 201 North Bel Air Road. Again, the property is on the east side of North Bel Air Road, intersection of Roxbury Drive and North Bel Air. Currently it's zoned PDD, as is the property to the north, and then everything else around it is primarily R2. We do have some P1 across the street and to the south as well. This is an aerial view of the site, again, not developed. And also the plat of the property. And the proposed site plan for this. So the request, really what it stems from is that PDD does have a site plan that's attached to it when it's rezoned. The request for this is for a law office.
Drugstore before, wasn't it?
Exactly. It was a drugstore. I believe it was 2013 it was rezoned for that. That site plan does not work in this case. PDD is one that is practically P1 with the requirement to have the site plan attached to it. So rezone to P1 takes away the site plan is really all it does in this situation. Really, overall, staff really has no concerns with the request. This does show a site plan for it. Again, we're not considering this concept, it's not locking them in for any of this. One of the reasons that they have designed this way with the parking lot here and here, they are looking to save a couple of trees in this area, which kind of shifts the building over. They won't need any variances for this currently for any of this. It shows the concept of the office design itself. Again, it looks more residential in nature than some of the other office ones that we normally see. There is a condition that kind of speaks to that here in a moment. Again, this does show, the next picture shows the existing site of the property. In terms of future land use, this is the Bel Air corridor. This is to transition over to professional development area. They're currently being zoned PDD as well. Not any concerns with this request. Again, staff recommends approval with condition. The condition is elevation design should meet the core direction overlay district and be a traditional residential style compatible with compliance surrounding buildings. It already would have to meet CPOD. This is just kind of put there to kind of reemphasize that. We don't really have an issue with them not meeting that, but again, it's just to kind of clarify the situation. Luckily, staff recommendation.
Got no problems with an additional curb cut on the North Bel Air?
So traffic has not made a comment on that. Again, it's one that I believe GDOT would be required to review it. That's something that'll have to be sorted out at that. Again, they already have a curb cut there, so it's one that I ask for anything new.
Gentlemen, any questions? The applicant here. Public hearing, would you like to come forward and give us any additional information you'd like staff? Please give us your name and home address.
Thank you, Jim. Andy Tisdale, 3016 Timberwoods Drive, Appling. As Will noted, what we're trying to do is create some additional green space to the south end and save 2 or 3 of the large oak trees that are presently there, along with a couple of the oak trees that are just north of the building. And the condition that has been suggested is going to be adhered to. My law office is presently at 207 North Bel Air Road, and then my father owns the building at 205. And so if you remember those buildings, it's a red metal roof with a tabby oyster shell finish. What we're looking to do here is maybe a step up from that. The roof on this is going to be metal, standing metal seam. The exterior is either going to be brick or is it going to be hardy plank. In truth, porte cochere is probably not going to be a part of the building now that we've seen the price tag, but we're going to rearrange the front of the building to be very happy to answer any questions.
Gentlemen, any questions? All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
This is a public hearing, or is there anyone here that'd like to speak either for or against this particular rezoning? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and accept a motion to approve, deny, or to table.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve with conditions file RZ 200202, rezoning property 201 North Bel Air, PD to P1.
Second.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Approved carries 5-0. Okay, we do have a request on rezoning RZ 200203 to withdraw.
Yes, sir, we do.
But since we've advertised it, we're going to go ahead and have the public hearing. And if there's anybody here that would like to speak either for or against this, we'll give you the opportunity, knowing that this probably will change significantly if or when we ever see this again.
Yes, sir.
So with that being said, Ms. Bolte?
Yes, sir, this is a request for a rezoning from RA Residential Agriculture to S1 Special for a proposed church campus off Appling Harlem Road. This is on the north side of I-20, on the east side of Appling Harlem, bounded to the east by Lonergan Hulme Road. It is currently zoned RA, as is pretty much everything on the east side of Appling Harlem Road. It is directly across from White Oak Business Park, which is all zoned M2 for industrial development. This is the aerial of the site. This is the existing house, and the remainder of the property is pretty much undeveloped. The intent was to develop a new church campus in this location, and this was the concept for that, with the buildings and parking, everything situated largely in the center of the property, leaving a large perimeter of green space, kind of buffer area. Where we've run into a little bit of challenges with redesigning this main entrance. That is the main entrance for White Oak itself, and it is a bit of a unique intersection design as it currently sits to accommodate the truck traffic in and out of that facility. We did have a pre-development meeting with the applicants where this was brought up, and they are in the process of doing a traffic study and figuring out how they would actually improve that intersection to accommodate this large church campus and White Oak, and what the costs of that would be and those kind of details. So at this time, while they're working on that, they are asking to withdraw this request without prejudice, and once they work through that, we may see them again.
Gentlemen, any questions? Is the applicant here? Okay, is there anyone here that'd like to speak either for or against this particular rezoning?
Yes, sir. So if they come back with a new proposal, they will have to resubmit the application. It will be re-advertised with new signs.
Please come forward, give us your name and home address.
My name is Jonathan Klink. I live at 1866 Lonergan Hulme Road in Appling. And the only thing I'd like to say is the proposed entrance here, this is the first time I'm seeing this. The proposed entrance here, that's my property right next to it that's got that little jut down and goes up in the back. That road, that wet area has taken years and years and years to finally come out of a Zone A floodplain. And if that's disturbed now and not, proper drainage and stuff put underneath this thing, if we start having water issues, I'm gonna be really upset about that. That whole area there is low. Where my house is, I
Point,
wouldn't,
you could actually mark on that screen. Would you draw a little X or an arrow or wherever your home is?
my home is like right there. If I was buying the property I own today that was vacant, I wouldn't have put a house there. It's just, it's never flooded. There's never been water intrusion in the house or anything like that, but everything comes down from the property to the south. It all flows north through there, and it's finally dried out some, and I'd hate to see that disturbed, and then me and the guy south of me, which I don't care for anyway, but I would hate to see anybody else's property have issues because of drainage, and because they're, now using it, now there's a road going across there. I'm not here to tell people what they can and can't do with their property. I don't want anybody telling me what I can do with mine and what I can't do with it. But when it comes to drainage for the entire area and how wet that is, especially on that parcel, how wet that stays all year long, and now they're gonna wanna drive across it.
With the new changes, is that gonna require a core permit? Or will that be a state waters permit? Because I know that now that,
Depending on the final determination, if it's state waters versus floodplain versus wetlands, it will require permitting by state or by FEMA. So they will have to show how they're handling that road crossing to not have the impacts that you're talking
Okay,
about.
because my property just this year got removed from the floodplain by FEMA. It's never flooded in the history of the world, but that's how they do things. Other than that, I mean, a lot of us that own property out there shoot on our property. And it would be sad for something to interfere with us being able to exercise that freedom that we've got.
noted. Thank you, sir. We
Other than
appreciate you
that,
coming
thank
out. Okay. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak either for or against this particular rezoning? Okay, with that being said, gentlemen, we have a request to withdraw without prejudice. So we'll need a motion to approve, deny, or to table, or to allow them to withdraw.
Chairman, I make a motion to withdraw without prejudice, file RZ 2003, zoning from RA S1 at 57 Appleton Harlem Road.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Withdraw without prejudice passes 5-0. Ms. Neal, file RZ 200204.
Yes, sir. This is a request for a major S1 revision for property located at 777 Horizon South Parkway on 6.44 acres. It's for an expansion of the square footage utilized by Warren Baptist Church within the existing building and expansion of their allowed uses. The subject property is located on the west side of Horizon South Parkway and subleases part of their building to Serta Mattress. All of the surrounding properties are zoned M2 General Industrial, with John Deere to the east and a few manufacturing companies to the north. It also has Augusta Technical College to the south, which is also zoned M2. The request is for, this shows an aerial of the site and the existing site and the plat of the property. The request is for them to use approximately 5,000 square feet more within the existing building for the church. This is going to be for an assembly area, storage, restroom, and some offices. And the applicant intends to eventually utilize the entire building once Serta leaves the property in the future. So this revision will also allow them to do that once Serta leaves. The additional allowed uses include some conferences, camps, extra discipleship and counseling, and also a weekday preschool, similar to the one that they are already running in their Augusta location. They're just trying to add it to this one as well. The subject property is located within the Gateway Activity Center on the Vision 2035 map, which is intended for commercial uses, employment centers, and mixed-use development. Most of this activity center follows that near the I-20 exit area. This subject property is located within the area of this activity center that focuses on employment centers, such as you have John Deere, Augusta Technical College. Most of these industrial uses in the church were in place before the Vision 2035 map plan was adopted. So that it doesn't create a negative impact for any of the surrounding properties. So staff recommends approval.
Gentlemen, any questions? Is the applicant here? Mr. Ivy? You give us your name and home address. We know you, but some out there may not.
Mark Ivy, 730 Stonecrest Lane, Appling, Georgia. This is the reason this is coming before you is when I did the rezoning initially, I maybe was a little too detailed in what I wrote, and it wasn't general enough to allow some of these uses. So we're coming back now. The church is trying to get the preschool Mother's Day Out program going, and when they met with some of the state regulators, they questioned the zoning, and then that turned into questioning staff and turned into here we are. So in the midst of doing all that, we're also looking to expand into that warehouse area that's in the back. So we thought, well, it'd be a great time to go ahead and get that included.
Kick CERTA out to get space, or?
You know, CERTA has signed a lease with us for another year.
Okay.
And so we've been kind of on a month-to-month basis with them, but they're going to stay another year. And we've met with them, and they've signed off on what we're wanting to do, and they're fine with it. It doesn't really hurt their operation with it. It's really been a great partnership. It's worked out really good for both of us.
Questions? Thank you, sir. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone here that would like to speak either for or against this particular rezoning? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and accept a motion to approve, deny, or to table.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to approve file RZ 200204, revising the S1 zoning at 777 Horizon South Parkway.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Approved carries 5-0. All right, the final item in our public hearings tonight, Mr. Butler, file VA 200201.
This is a request for a variance, section I-139, buffers and screening, to reduce buffers for a portion of the property at 445 River Oaks Way. Again, currently zoned R2, single-family residential. This location of the property is on the south side, Apartment Manus Road. This is currently the River Oaks development that's under construction. Again, currently zoned R2, pretty much everything around it is R1. You do have the church is S1 over on the west side. In the aerial view of the site, you can see where they've, in the aerial, the roads are under construction at this point. We'll see some photos here in a second. Show you they're pretty much done. This is the existing site. Back, a little further back. This is the actual section that we'll talk about tonight. You can see here it has no buffer between it and the adjacent property. This shows a plat of the property again for the entire site itself. This also shows a subdivision plat. So we're only dealing with these 5 lots here this evening. We're not dealing with any of the lots on the property. Currently, those lots have a 25-foot natural buffer between them. R2 to R1 requires that. The request is for a reduction now to a 10-foot structural. In the situation where a natural buffer is not in place, you have to go back in and plant the trees. You could go in and put a fence in as well. It's not very clear on, or it is. You can put a fence in there. Let's put it that way. So either way, you're going to be able to have a fence with either one of these types of buffers. Really, what you have with the reduction from a 25 down to a 10 is more usable yard area. Also, the applicant has indicated that the next door neighbor has requested very specific requirements for the fence and the trees. So if we go to the next slide, you have the kind of the proposed buffer or the area for the buffer for these lots 14 through 18. And in terms of that, staff really sees no issue with it. We do have a condition, though, that it only applies to those lots 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, as on the subdivision plat. It's not real clear in the application. This is just to kind of make sure that it doesn't apply to any other property within this parcel, because it is 102 acres in size. That includes staff recommendation.
Gentlemen, any questions of staff? Is the applicant here? Mills, come forward and give us your name and home address.
Certainly. Matt Mills, 3009 Lake Forest Drive, Augusta, Georgia. Will did a pretty good job explaining it. This is just a simple thing where it's best for the builder that's buying the 5 lots in the front of our subdivision and best for Mr. Lowell Thomas, who lives next door. Mr. Thomas prefers a more manicured look than a 25-foot natural buffer, which over time just grows up to look like woods. What's been proposed, we want to do what's best for him and be a good neighbor. So First Choice Home Builders is willing to put up a fence at 10 foot off the line and then plant. I think Lowell has gotten with Four Seasons Landscaping, and his preferred buffer is green giants planted on 20-foot spacing or whatever George recommends, so that when he comes in his driveway, it will quickly block the houses that are built next to him and give him a more formal right side of his property. And we did not mean to intend it for the whole property. It's only for these 5 lots.
Gentlemen, any questions? Thank you, sir. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone here that would like to speak either for or against this particular variance? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and accept a motion to approve, deny, or to table.
Chairman, I make a motion to approve with condition file VA 20201, variance to reduce buffer, structural buffer for the portion of the property at 445 River Oaks Way.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Motion to approve carries 5-0. We have no text amendments, no additional items, no legal matters. Do we have any staff or commissioner comments? Do we have any public comments? Public we've got left. Seeing none, I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? He's already voting. All in favor?
Matt.
Motion to
Yes, you,
approve carries 5-0. Meeting's adjourned at 7:11. Next meeting is February 20th at 6 PM in these chambers. Thanks for coming out. Who won the bet?
Daniel.